Yes, in fact, you can use any polish, any compound by hand or with machine, regardless of what the directions say. And here we have the ass end of the 2020 Volkswagen Passat plastic tail lenses. Now what I want to also highlight is this thing called swirl marks. Now most people are familiar with swirl marks in paint, but swirl marks can display themselves just about anywhere. Now to clarify, swirl marks is the pattern created by reflected light. Now there's three things that need to come together to produce what most people call swirl marks. You need a scratched surface that's reflective, you need a light source, and more precisely, you need a round light source. Because the reason people call them swirl marks is there is a swirled or circular pattern. Well, the light source itself, which in this case, the scan grip, is a circular pattern, just like the sun. Most people will observe swirl marks in the sun. The sun is a circle. Therefore, the way the light is scattered is in a circular pattern. So the scratches that you're seeing all over this tail lens are not actually circular in shape. They're just endless scratches that only reflect in a circular pattern due to a circular light source. I'm going to first use some tape to really isolate the tail lens. I'll fast forward this. Right there, you can see some skid marks that do not belong. That's not part of the original equipment moment. Now to really bump up the jam, I'm going to take some 2500 grit sandpaper to verify there. I'm not going to use a sanding block because I'm not trying to retain the precision or the control that a sanding block would allow me, which means that I don't have to maintain perfect flatness. There's no orange peel, there's no real texture to this like car paint. It's got a curvature to it. And really what I want to do is just dial this up. So what this is a representation of the endless types of damage that you can incur to a tail lens or paint or anywhere. Also, it will answer another question, which is, hey Darren, can you wet sand plastic? So this is very hard, very rigid plastic. So it can be, the sandpaper can bite into it and cut into it without gumming up the sandpaper. And this is also why I taped off those areas, is now that I can freely sand the area. And let me just talk a little bit, because what I'm doing is I'm introducing 2500 grit sanding marks. The goal of sandpaper, well, let me reduce it down to this one word, control. So sandpaper offers a level of control as far as refining the surface that a buffer with a traditional buffing pad does not allow for. Also, there's this much spread rumor. It's just misinformation. And I've referenced Chris Fix in the past because, you know, I'm sure Chris Fix is a terrific sort of dude. I don't know Chris Fix. And I'm only choosing him because he has a massive channel. So I'm pretty sure at this level he's developed a thick skin. So I'm not trying to disparage him. I'm just saying is that he repeats bad information, which is this. Never apply anything in a circular fashion because A, it produces swirl marks. Secondly, he says that swirl marks are harder to remove than straight scratches, which is just not true. The determining factors as to how easily or how hard scratches can be removed precisely have to do with the depth of the scratch itself. It doesn't matter what direction, it's the depth into the material as well as the material itself. Then it would just bleed out into the nuances of what type of buffer, what type of buffing pad, are you using a compound, a polish. So what I'm doing is I'm just sanding this to illustrate a few points. And what I will do at this point is now, and part of the rule with wet sanding, and they call it wet sanding because, well, you use water. Why do you use water? Because the water washes away the material as you abrade, scratch, sand it off, so it doesn't gum up the paper itself. So I'm going to go in a circular pattern up here at the top because I know it's irrelevant, because what I'm doing is I'm creating what's called a uniform scratch pattern. And what that means is it has nothing to do with the direction of the scratches. It has to do with the depth of the scratches. So however deep the 2500 grit is, I'm sure it could be measured with the right tool, but it's irrelevant. I just know in this moment, 2500 grit is sand marks that I can deal with pretty easily. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a uniform scratch pattern so that every blemish in this tail lens now, once I continue to develop that uniform scratch pattern, I know that the deepest defect will be the equivalent of 2500 grit. Hopefully that makes sense. For example, if I did not create a totally uniform scratch pattern and there's still some deep gouges in this and I go to buff it, well, guess what's going to still remain once I'm done buffing and I'm removing the scratches that I don't want to be there? Well, there's still going to be some deep gouges. Just to verify, I went back and forth, left and right, down here, and I went in a circular pattern up here. I want to make sure that I finesse this down here so that I've really uniformed scratch pattern. And I'm going to maximize the video moment, and I'm going to show you polishing by hand. Now there's a natural character line right here on the tail lens that's molded into it. So this comes down and then this kind of drops down a little more sharply. So I'm going to section this off right at that character line, and I'm going to be polishing this by hand. So here is my favorite go-to polish for many, many reasons. Once again, you can use this by hand or machine. Now, many of you will default to hand because you don't want to buy a buffer and buffering pads and learn how to use a buffer because it's really, really scary, and I get it. You're not looking for perfection, you're just looking for better results. So I'm going to show you 2500 grit sanding marks. Just as a heads up, is not considered overly aggressive in the world of wet sanding. Microfiber cloth, I always recommend a microfiber cloth. There's my little dollop of polish. And what I want to do is just isolate the bottom with the top. And I'm going to show you how much effort and the results that you can, well, because most tail lenses are pretty uniform in how rigid they are. Unlike clear coats. Clear coats, it's all over the board. How soft, how hard, it's much more diversity. So I think this would be a fair representation of most tail lenses on the market. Now this is a 2020 model, so it has not endured the elements of weather and sun exposure like maybe your 10 or 15-year-old car does. So you're going to have to factor those things into the equation. So at this point, things are looking pretty shiny, but do not underestimate the power of lighting. My goal as a professional detailer is to make sure that I produce results that look superior in direct sunlighting. But as a professional, I also know that different light sources will reveal different blemishes, different flaws, different good things. It's not all negative, but light is critical. So I will verify with my customer, okay, do you want me to achieve perfection based on you looking at your car in direct sunlight? Pretty much every customer I've ever had says yes, because I inform them that if they're going to scrutinize their car under fluorescent lights in their garage every time they go out into their garage to get into their car, I said, you need to let me know Generally, if I nail it in the sunlight, I know I've nailed it in the fluorescence. The difference would be LED lights and the different lumens. That's where things really can get tricky. Now you can use a backing plate for this even if you wanted. Like for example, here's a very rigid backing plate. It's made out of acrylic, but it's got a soft pad over here. So, you know, this is where industriousness comes in. So I could put some polish along here, and now I can apply more pressure because this is a mostly flat surface. I'm not having to work or be constrained by nuances of body panels. So I can sit here and really lay into this at a much higher level than just with my hand. So now I have a backing plate, which you could then call this a buffing pad. So if I was finessing this in the real world, I would go in really heavy-handed with, like, let's say I'm choosing the backing plate, but then to refine it, I'm going to back off the pressure and just finesse this back and forth. Very light pressure, because really what I want to do is finesse those scratches. And if you don't understand the physicalities of scratch removal, you literally are sanding your way to perfection, sanding your way to success, because you're using the abrasive particles that are suspended in your choice of slurry, a compound, polishing compound, polish, whatever it is. Abrasive particles are suspended in that. At least this product has abrasive particles. Unfortunately, there's no standardization in this industry. Therefore, one manufacturer may call a polish that has 0 abrasives in it. Another company may call a polish and it has abrasives in it. There's just no standardization. Let's go in for a deep dive. Got my lens. Let's see. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, baby. Woo. I'm liking the results. And this is produced by hand. Now, once again, if you're going to make a comparison with this plastic lens to the clear coat plastic, this would be considered very soft in relation to the very, very hard clear coat on that white paint. But as a beginner, you won't know the difference, but I am liking what I see. So let's take this off, this line of separation. Something very unique about this product, aside from the many attributes, but it's true waterborne technology. But even a deeper dive into that is that this has a surfactant formulated into it. Now, a surfactant is just a glorified name for soap. And you may say, like, wow, why the hell would I want soap in my polish, Darren? Well, it has to do with cleanup, which means the second you introduce water to it, it breaks it down. And so cleanup is super, super easy. It's like, oh, wow. And once again, if you're a beginner, you have nothing to compare that to. For example, solvent-based products, they gum up, they get sticky, they eventually plasticize, which means they become like rock-hard cement, and they are a nightmare to clean up. They can be. And cleanup is a big time suck. Now we can come back in, get my light. Now we've got a nice refined circle, and it's not dispersing or scattering all the light to creating that swirled mark effect. So, can you polish plastic? Yes, you can. Can you wet sand plastic? Yes, you can. Can you do it by hand? Yes, you can. Okay, party people, Thanks for playing along. Leave your comments and questions below. Always check the links below because I will take you to one of my websites where I'll wax longer and stronger on any given subject today. And by the way, if you haven't given the video a thumbs up yet, I'm pretty certain I've taught you at least one nugget of wisdom. Give the video a thumbs up. I appreciate it. And by all means, leave a comment below. Okay, thanks for playing along, and we'll see you in the next video.